officers were wounded, and now Davis is on trial. The jury selection, however, has been slow and controversial. Charges of racial bias flying about the courtroom. And as correspondent David Goldstein reports, the judge in the case agrees and now must decide what to do.
6 cops were injured. Davis escaped, but was captured 17 days later. Since the trial will pit the black defendant against white police officers he claims were out to get him, Kunstler admits he's been trying to get a mostly black jury.
I'd like a third world jury. That's a jury of his peers. I think they would understand the situation. They wouldn't be overwhelmed by the fact that it's police officers. Why are they trying to do the opposite?
But Supreme Court Justice Bernard Freed cried foul, ruling there was reason to believe jurors were being excluded because of race. He sided with the prosecution, prompting Kunstler to allege the judge is biased against his client.
And I think it is not a legal, but a political and a decision coming out of your own personal ambition.
But there has been legal precedent. Last year, the judge in the Howard Beach trial ruled that defense attorneys were barred from excluding blacks solely on race. He added that attorneys would have to give non-racial explanations when trying to dismiss prospective jurors.
The whole charade began when our police commissioner, Ben Ward, who I think is a racist, turned this into a racial apprehension. Let's talk about what happened. Bronx Homicide Task Force, 1986. We were doing 400 homicide investigations a year, most of which were narcotic-related homicides. Now, I had 2 things going in the squad. I had formed a fugitive unit, and I had a narcotics unit. And with the narcotics unit, we had a 3-phase operation, how we would handle drug-related homicides, fully realizing nobody would talk to us. Witnesses were reluctant, right? We were dealing with just forensics and the crime scene. Then, whoops, then the intelligence, all right? And what would happen is eventually we would put together enough information that we would get an exceptional clearance, either because the person who was dead had been the shooter before or vice versa. So we had a good thing going. And as far as my fugitive squad, we apprehended people a hell of a lot more dangerous than Larry Davis without incident, without a shot fired. So let's go to October 30th, 1986. We get called to a quadruple homicide over in the 4-1 precinct, Fort Apache. We got 4 drug dealers, hands and feet bound, right? Face down, executed the back of the head. It's a drug ripoff, okay? But we don't have much evidence. We have shell casings. But then we got lucky. We lifted a latent print off the cash box. Now, at the same time, Bronx homicide detectives, using their informants, came up with a possibility of Larry Davis, who him and his brother were doing drug ripoffs. Well, sure enough, what happens? The latent print comes back to Larry Davis. At this point, we know that Larry Davis is our suspect, and he's going to be a fugitive. I asked my chief, Rotundo, that's what I call him. Rotundo never liked detectives, okay? Why? Because he was never a detective. More importantly, he never had a gold shield. And the thing was that he always considered homicide detectives prima donnas. So when I said to him, Chief, let my fugitive squad take Larry Davis and pursue him. We don't need elitists in the Bronx, Vernon. The local squad can handle this. Now, the 4-1 squad's up to their neck with homicides. Now, anybody who knows squad works know that the squads can't get together and do an apprehension like a fugitive squad can do. So this is the beginning. I says, Chief, you're making a mistake. No. Well, this was the same chief that when he came into the Bronx borough, he said, you know, I never liked detectives, and now I'm in charge. I'm saying, oh, this is going to be fun. Then he goes, and you, Geberth, think you're smart because you wrote a book. I said, oh, wow, I'm number 1. I'm on the hit parade. So I knew this guy was going to be a problem. But now we're looking for Larry Davis, and we have informants. The 4-4 squad was doing a great job, 4-4 RIP, anti-crime, and these cops are coming up with information. Well, lo and behold, in between everything else, there's a chase, a car chase coming out of Manhattan. Manhattan patrol officers interrupt a robbery homicide of drug dealers in Manhattan. They're chasing the fugitives across the Alexander Hamilton Bridge. They're firing shots. They're calling for help from the Bronx. The units begin to respond. In comes this eunuch, newly promoted captain, probably was never in the street, orders this chase to stop. All right? You don't order a chase to stop when there's shots fired. This is serious. When we got the police car back, the police car had ballistics matching the quadruple homicide from the 4-1 precinct. So at this point, we know Larry Davis is our suspect. But Rotundo wouldn't let the fugitive squad handle it. So what happens? On November 19th, 1986, detectives get information. Fulton Avenue, 1231 Fulton Avenue. They get together with emergency service, the squad, and precinct uniform. They're going to get Larry Davis. Well, everybody knows it's very hard not to make noise with emergency service trucks and cops mobilizing. As they went into the apartment to get Larry Davis starts shooting over his nieces and nephews and the racist cops, because we're all racist, right? Withhold fire because the kids are in the way. We get 6 cops shot. We never had 6 cops shot in one incident. Now, by the grace of God, across the street was Bronx Lebanon Hospital. Let me tell you about Bronx Lebanon Hospital. If you were shot and your partner brought you to Bronx Lebanon Hospital, you would kill your partner if you got out. All right, that's the kind of place it was. But it was good for triage. And they would triage, and the wounded officers were removed to Bellevue Hospital next day. I had Tommy McCarran, one of my top detectives, shot through the neck. Officer Mary Buckley had her teeth blown out. Sergeant Edward Coulter admitted with a leg wound. Officer John O'Harris, ESU, leg wound. And Officer Ricardo Martinez shot in the arm, and Donald O'Sullivan, one detective, with a scalp wound. We never had this before. I get called at home that night because I had worked the day tour. When I got the message, I believed at that point that my detective McCarran was dead. That's how bad it sounded. I raced in. Now, I've handled police homicides in my career, quite a few, especially during the BLA, Black Liberation Army. I immediately put together an extraction team. Extraction teams are the people like yourselves, good detectives, go out and we pull these people out of their nests because we know where they hibernate, right? We had information that he was holed up at his sister's house at Webster Avenue. We're about to hit the street and in rolls Rotundo. No detectives in the street by orders of the police commissioner. We don't want a racial incident. I said, what racial incident? We just had 6 cops shot. That's attempted murder. And I'm here to babysit you, Gerberth. Oh, fine. So he sat there till 5:30. At 5:35, he took his fat ass home, and I was in the street with 12 handpicked detectives, all of whom would deny they were in the street. Those are the kind of people that work for me, and we missed Larry Davis by an hour. Now, the picture that's up on the screen, that's one of the abortive raids. I'm there with Chief Coletti, I'm going to call him, all right? That's custom. This is like the 5th or 6th raid that we've done with the laughing stock of the Eastern Seaboard. I'll tell you about that in a minute. That's just one of many incidents. What happens the next day? We go to Alpha Bravo tours, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, all right? And they put together the master plan. And the master plan is this. Detectives will not go in the street, they will detect. What the fuck is that? Well, that means burn informants, and you will notify command and control, and the chief of the department, Patton, will personally handle this case. Now, we know that's impossible, but this is the master plan because it's politically correct. A convoy of the SU, emergency service, task force, community representatives, and a battalion, a parade, which will be led by a super chief. And only a super chief can lead the parade. Now, we're the only department arrogant enough to have the rank of super chief, right? Each super chief had to be given a designated call sign. The chief of the department, he was Patton. Chief patrol was Custom. The next guy was Nimitz. The next guy was Halsey. The next guy was Bradley. They actually had army helmets with stars, and this is how they had to be referred to by the command. I was Scorpio leader. What the hell that was? All right. In any event, we could not go in the street. We were to detect. And then when we find him, you notify command and control, and in comes the convoy. Now, both of you guys know you can't drive down some of those streets in the Bronx in a Crown Vic without raising the neighborhood. Right. We're coming in with a parade. They could not figure out why they couldn't catch him because he went out the back. That's why he saw it coming. At one point, I said to my chief, please, let me put my people on the perimeter. You're a fascist, Geberth. No, I'm not a fascist. If he's going out the back, we'll catch him. No, couldn't do that. So this went on for 3 weeks, and I'm in a squeeze play. I got to tell you, the pressure was unbelievable. My cops are yelling, boss, boss. And I'm getting from down, get more information, get more information. It's getting like this. At one point, one of my friendly reporters called up, Vernon, what the hell's going on in the Bronx? I said, well, we should be moving like lightning. Instead, we move like a large blue elephant. Somebody downtown knew I said that. My name wasn't on it. They knew I said it. Well, at this point, at 12 hours on, 12 hours off, at one point, I had to go upstate to Siena College to pick up my son, who was in college. And I see a picture of Larry Davis on the thruway booth. I said, fucking Larry Davis wouldn't know how to get to the thruway. He's either in the Bronx or in some nest in Harlem. Right. It goes on and on and on. It's getting worse. Now, they detailed the deputy inspector, Jim Powers. He's no longer with us, God bless him. He was a homicide commander, to make sure I did not go in the street. This is but Gerberth's not allowed in the street. Every once in a while, I'd sneak some detectives out, but I wasn't allowed. So on December 5th, 1986, the phone rings in my commander's office. It's one of my detectives. We have Larry Davis on the wire at his sister's apartment at the Twin Park houses on Webster Avenue. This is big. This is now I know we have him in a position in a locale and we can move. My job's to notify command and control. I said, do not notify command and control. You have notified me. At that point, I was insubordinate. Inspector Powers goes, I'm out of here. In other words, if you're going to commit suicide, I don't want to watch. And he knew what I was going to do. I call it command aside. I was willing at this point to give up my command and my position to get Larry Davis caught and save my cops. That's where I was at in my head. I sent 38 Black and Hispanic officers into that location. Nobody out, nobody in. They want to go out, they can't go out. They want to come in, they can't come in. When you have that building locked down, you call me, we'll bring the white faces in. I call command and control. I put the trucks 5 blocks away from Webster Avenue. What do you got? I said, just put the trucks there. We have them. I go out with my detectives in the perimeter, making sure everything's under control. I can't hear a damn thing because of all the radio chatter. You know a little button on the radio? Turn that sucker off. You don't hear shit. I'm on the portable talking to cops. All right. We have the building sealed. There's no way he can get out. I said, have the trucks respond forthwith. We have them trapped in the building. It took 15 minutes for those trucks to go 5 blocks. It was Custer's turn to lead the parade that day. He's stuck in traffic in Manhattan. They cannot move unless a super chief's in front. Now the fun begins. As they pull up the Twin Park houses, air brakes him. Everybody looks out the window, including Larry Davis. They know what's coming. He can't get out. His only option is up. Meanwhile, Custer comes running out and yelling, by whose authority have you done this? I said, by the authority vested me in common sense. And by the way, Chief, you know that Beetle Baileyham, you look like a fucking asshole. It came out before I could stop it. I says, Jesus Christ, I just called this guy an asshole. He turned around to see if I said it. If already heard me, I ran in the building. I don't know what to do. Didn't take him long to find me. All right. We down to the basement. Now, all 3 chiefs are there. Patton, Custer, and Rotundo. And they're all screaming at me. There was a housing lieutenant in the office watching this. Later on, he told me, he said, Vernon, it was the funniest fucking thing I ever saw. You got the 3 chiefs are screaming and you're smiling. Are you finished, Chief? Are you finished? So I'm going to call him Jones, Robert Jones, the chief of the department. Very sardonic personality. He used to call his deputy chiefs and inspectors by their civil service rank of captain to scare them. So he says to me, Vernon, are you a lieutenant or a lieutenant commander? A lieutenant commander would know how to obey an order. I said, Chief, I'm whatever the fuck you want me to be. My men got them in the building. They're not your men. They're my men. Then your men have them in the building. Then the next guy, why did you do it, Gerberth? Because I wanted to see him get caught this time, all right? With a laughing stock. Then my guy chimes in. You were insubordinate. You've had it. I said, no. I improvised at that and overcame. Now you're going to get him. He's in the building. So the verbal flogging stopped. The flogging stopped because all of a sudden he's back on the wire. Tell the people that I left the building, I got away. I said, good. Now they know he's in the building. 8 hours. Couldn't get him out. Now, think about this for a minute. You have the entire NYPD mobilized to catch this mutt, and we can't catch him. And every time we have a raid, we lose him. You know how we caught him? He got hungry for Chinese food at about 11:30, and he sent one of the hostages out to buy Chinese food. Don't tell the cops I'm holding your family up here. This is the guy we couldn't catch. This is fucking ridiculous. So when he comes back with Chinese food, he gets stopped, right? We find out where he is, hostage negotiators, and then Larry surrenders, but not before he gets to speak to all the reporters in the city, plus his girlfriend. And then they march him out, the chief of the department, the police commissioner, and my first grade detective, Andy Lugo, God bless him. That's the guy, the trench coat, who made the arrest. And they walk him through a phalanx of people, of cops, with the people yelling, Larry, Larry, from the building like he's a hero. I'll say, look at this shit. The guy's a thug. He's killing people in the community, and they made him a hero. Yep. So they're going to have a news conference. So some female reporter runs up to him and says, Vernon, didn't you call this raid? I says, off the record, yes. On the record, no. Look, the generals. See, the generals are having a press conference. They caught him. So the generals speak. There was no community unrest. Larry Davis is unharmed. Everything's fine. We still got 6 cops in the hospital, but everything's fine. And then, of course, you saw what happened in the courtroom with Kunstler and Lynn Stewart, and horrible. Well, I thought maybe I might have had a temporary reprieve, but by Saturday morning, it was quite apparent that I was finished being the commanding officer of Bronx Homicide. You don't do shit like this and get away with it. But I was willing to fall on my sword to get him captured. I had 23 years on the job. So you can't forecast you get now, because then they're going to get you. At the time, there were only 25 lieutenant commanders. If I announced my intention to retire, there'd be 50 people looking for my slot, and they would have sent inspections team up to my command. I would have been dying of 1,000 cuts. Instead, I did one of the best undercover operations of my life. I will actually retire without them knowing it, through the black connection. Our senior aide, Oscar, I says, Oscar, I got to throw my papers in. We can't afford to lose bosses like you. I says, Oscar, I'm dead in the water, and the frickin' torpedo's coming. He said, let me think about it. They processed me out using my tax registry number, not my name. And everything was done like that. I went like business was normal. I had another police homicide. I did this, I did that. It was like I was going to be around for a long time. After the thing, after he was arrested, they had a big get together at headquarters, like they conducted a military campaign, giving each other commendations for capturing Larry Davis. I'm laughing my ass off. Well, I wasn't laughing in February, because in February, the guy I called a complete fucking asshole became the chief of detectives. It's not funny anymore. Now, you know how this works, Tom, okay? You've been in the job a long time. There's no direct hit on me. This is going to be like it's the guy for the Bronx supposed to get him for the guy downtown. So what happened is, unbeknownst to them, all right, I'm almost ready, the papers at work's almost ready to go, and I get a lost murder case on February 5th, 1987. I decide to use my expertise with DNA, and I send the material to a DNA firm, and I get a bill of like for $5,000, but the bill won't come in until after I retire. Homicide cops don't get mad. We get even. So I walked out the door with the first DNA case in New York State, the second in the country, third in the world, all right? And I walked out. I walked out with my back straight and my head high, the way I came into this operation.
And when he did that, I grabbed his pants leg and stabbed him 2 times in his leg. And one of them severed the feeder's artery on the back of his leg. And that's how he ended up dying.
So the COs rush in, they take Larry to the infirmary, but at the prison you were at, there was no trauma unit.
Right.
So they tried to transport him to an actual real hospital, the trauma unit, but by the time he got there, he died.
Right, he passed away. But if they would have tied his leg, let me say that, if they would have tied his leg, he might have survived. He would have lost his leg, but he would have survived. Even with a collapsed lung,
As a doctor,
he would have survived with that too. But they didn't care about him. Listen, you don't know how many officers, like, good job, and,
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.